Welcome back to Withum's video series, The Alternative Route. Here with me today is Deborah Kostroun, who's a managing director at Zito Partners, which is financial services, public relations, and marketing firm working with fintech, AI, venture capital, private equity, asset management, and other full-service financial service firms. Deborah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Colleen. Great to be here.
So today's topic centers around communications and public relations and learning a little bit about the process. So let's dig in. Deborah, executives listening, they may be wondering whether they're ready for a more robust communications strategy or PR. What does a communication strategy matter for leaders and brands?
You know, Colleen, communications is really about kind of control. It's controlling your message, your reputation, and how you're perceived in the business world. And, you know, especially we kind of tell clients that if you don't define who you are, the marketplace will define who you are. And that's really important as we're really in the digital age, in this age of AI. So it's really important that you think about what is your business trying to communicate, and also what kind of problem are you trying to solve for customers, because that's ultimately how you're going to connect with customers and how you can also bring in customers, because communications it's really just an extension of your marketing department and really kind of bringing that message home.
Very important. So would you say is communications and PR more valuable at an early growth stage or once a company's already established?
You know, that is an interesting question, Colleen, because, you know, one of the things that we work with a lot of clients that are either early stage or companies that are 10 years old, 13 years old. In fact, we work with a company that's 30 years old and one that's 70 years old. So I think the strategy is different for each stage. For some of the early stage companies that we work with, one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to build credibility, number one. They're trying to get their name out there. But then in addition to that, they're also trying to connect with potential investors and partners, and they're also trying to hire people. So it's a little bit different approach, and it's a little bit different strategy in terms of what they're trying to do. In fact, we work with the company, we've been working with them for several years, and when they first started, they said, we really need to attract talent. And then we got to, okay, now we need to pivot, and now we need to connect with the marketplace with our AI offering. And now we're back to the point where they told us about a month or two so ago, they said, you know, now we're looking at a funding round. So now we need to pivot once again. So what we're looking at is just changing the strategy. Maybe it's for podcasts, maybe it's for startup founders, but we're really looking at making that change. And then for companies that are actually more established, it's really about keeping that brand consistent and showing how the brand is actually evolving in the current environment. So it's important at each stage, but the strategy is just a little bit different.
So certainly not one size fits all. So switching gears a little bit, AI is changing every business right now. How is it impacting how companies think about communicating their message?
Colleen, you know, this is the question of the year, I guess, or the past year. And just like every business is trying to figure out how to implement AI and make their employees more effective, and employees trying to figure it out, we're also doing the same thing in communications. And it has been, we're keeping pace with the changes. And one of the things that the research is actually showing is that about 92% of what the LLMs are capturing, and I'm talking ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and Claude, what they're capturing, actually 92% is not paid. It's not paid sources. So it's kind of it's really kind of evolving, and what it is actually capturing is earned media. Not only earned, but just earned sources. So 25% of that is earned media. It's either trade press, being in the press, but another big part of that, another 25%, is actually when your company is in another corporate blog or in an analyst blog, maybe it's a Gartner or something like that, and the LLMs are picking that up as well. But another major component is what actually each company is saying on their own website and their own LinkedIn, and LLMs are actually capturing that as well. So all of that is really just kind of a sign to us that You have to be consistent with your message wherever it is. Your message is in a lot of different places, but what we're really looking at right now is when someone goes to that LLM, and we know by, I think it's 2029, that most people will not be using search, they'll be using the LLMs. We want to know, how do we get our company positioned in that LLM? And we are to get that answer. So your answer is up at the top, kind of like what we were trying to do with search. So it is evolving, and a lot of things are changing. So our strategy is also changing as well when it comes to communications in the age of AI.
Is there anything companies could learn about communicating their message so that it gets higher up on those large language models?
Yes, in fact, what the research is showing, that even in the summer of last year, a lot of the LLMs were actually just going to Wikipedia, but now the LLMs have evolved, and as we know, the LLMs, they're changing pretty much every day. But one of the things that we found is the LLMs are not looking at Wikipedia. They're changing, and they're also now looking at the press release. Everyone thought that the press release was, I'm going to say, not dead, but some people, a lot of our clients would say, well, we don't really want to put the press release out on the wire. Well, now putting it out on the wire is actually what the LLMs are grabbing. And it's not only just the press release. One of the things that we've learned in the new age of AI and the LLMs and what they're capturing is, you have to also make it something that the LLMs will want to grab, and that is putting in bullet points and also putting in stats. And it may just be a partnership, maybe just a partnership press release, but it's always good when there's a stat involved. And so what the LLMs are showing is that press releases are actually are important, along with all of these different earned sources of getting your message out there. Whether it is on social media, whether it's in earned media, or whether it is in your own blog.
That's really interesting. How do you think that the digital and social media has changed the communications landscape?
This is the one thing every leader wants to have their message out there. They want everyone to know, this is who I am. Come, do business with me. And one of the things that social media, and in particular LinkedIn, because there's different research that really shows that leaders can make a difference in a lot of different places, but they can really connect on LinkedIn. And something that we've been working with our clients with over the past year is, we know that 300 to 500 word blogs on LinkedIn can really help generate new business leads. It can attract attention, but it's not only just that. We're also finding that short video clips, here we're doing a podcast, obviously podcasts are important, but maybe after you do a podcast, we're helping clients get, a 30-second clip, and then they post it on LinkedIn. And it doesn't have to be right after the podcast. It could actually be 2 or 3 months after the podcast. So one of the things that we're finding is that in the age of thought leaders and CEOs trying to connect and trying to get more customers, we're finding these new ways, and these new ways of communicating are certainly, it's exciting. As a communications professional, we're learning some new things, but luckily a lot of people on our team, like myself, I used to work in television, but our team members, they also used to work at CNBC and Yahoo Finance and Fortune and Forbes. So we're used to the digital world, and it seems like we're definitely in a digital and also in a video world.
Yeah, it's a whole new world for sure. A lot of people still think that PR equals press releases. So how would you define PR today?
Well, PR, it's this multifaceted approach, all the things that we've been talking about. It's how you talk about yourself, how the CEO, and it's not just the CEO. Some of your senior leaders can also be writing these blogs that are going on your website and also on the LinkedIn page, because the LLMs are grabbing all of that. And so and as we mentioned earlier, the press release is getting, it's 5 times more important these days, because the LLMs are actually grabbing and using that as strong, trusted content. So it's multifaceted. It's on the digital platforms. It's on your own platform. It's also trying to to work with your partners and to have them include you in their blog as well, because that all just kind of integrates together. And then of course with a good media strategy as well, it all kind of works hand in hand.
What advice would you give to leaders who want to work more effectively with their communications team?
I think the big thing is giving the communications people a seat at the table. Sometimes, it's having the chief communications officer, making sure that they are aware and they're at the board meeting. They know exactly what the focus and what the mission is, and really trying to strategize and try to pivot and to change, because sometimes your focus changes a little bit. Are we focused on investors right now? Are we focused on bringing in sales? And of course, you're always focused on bringing in sales, but maybe there's a 3 or 4 month window where that strategy changes a little bit. And so it's important for communications to be to be so integrated into the entire process. And we have found that's how we've been successful with our clients, is when we know what is the strategy, what is the leadership trying to do, because it's all coordinated.
So much great food for thought when it comes to public relations. Thank you so much for joining us today, and stay tuned for our next episode of The Alternative Route.
Thanks, Colleen.